This is the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where it's all about getting the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. Brought to you by Itamar Shafir, founder and CEO of Umbrella, the technology platform and brand that is powering thousands of marketing agencies around the country. Find him at umbrellaus.com. Now, here's your host, Kevin Pruitt.
I want to welcome you to the Marketing Umbrella Podcast. We have another great guest this week. Our guest today is the founder of Quolum. Quolum helps companies manage their SaaS spend. He started Bitzer Mobile, a mobile security startup that Oracle acquired. Earlier, he led growth at Chargebee. He now lives in the San Francisco Bay Area. A very short bio with a long history. I want to welcome a great guest to the podcast, Indus Khaitan. Indus, thanks for joining us on the Marketing Umbrella.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, man, that's only 2 lines of a bio. So there's a lot of life lived in there that we didn't capture in 2 lines. So let's add some more meat to the bones. Let's talk about the journey.
I think the journey is yet another journey of an individual, just like all of us are. We try to find what drives us, what makes us happy, what feeds our children, and takes a new life form of its own. That's what most of our journeys are. Mine is no different.
Well, most of us have not exited a company that was purchased by that little known company called Oracle. So I do think that the paths are a little divergent here. So tell me, walk us back to that time. What were you doing? I know you had some partners that you were working with, and talk about that exit. And then I've got a really interesting question after the fact on that one.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. So 2007, 8, 9, I think 3 years when the whole magic of smartphones happened. Apple released this phenomenal new toy back then called iPhone. And soon the iPhone entered the enterprise. Every boardroom, every executive, every CXO, VP would want all of their corporate data on the iPhone. Their IT would say, hey, no effing way. This is not an authorized device because we already gave you a BlackBerry. Of course, I'm sure some of the members in the audience would remember what BlackBerry is or was, but it was a dominant smartphone. But because of that, IT would not allow, and iPhones became popular, and there was essentially a tug of war. And we found an opportunity to enable an iPhone to be connected to a large organization's intranet without violating IT security policies. And just, we got lucky. We had some of the largest companies in the world as customers because their boardroom executives wanted the corporate data on the iPhone. One thing led to the other. And we had a customer called General Dynamics, a very large defense contractor.
Yeah.
And GD also happened to be an Oracle customer. And somehow the word spread that, hey, this 25 people company in Sunnyvale, California is doing something on mobile that allows an inaccessible Oracle application to be accessed on the device without violating security policies. And then we got into a partnership discussion that led to corp dev, led to M&A, and finally we sold the company.
So I think I was watching another episode that you had done, and I think the title of that episode is a very short clip, like 2 or 3 minutes, and it said something about like the $6.5 million mistake. So I think it was directly tied to that. And I wrote down a quote that you said in that clip. You said, as a tech founder, you can't count your winnings early. You have to play the long game. That has such a broad application. And I mean, it's, hindsight. We always say hindsight's better than 2020, So, I mean, you obviously had a good exit and at that time, but, could it have been like, 10x, 100x type thing? And it's, looking back, what lessons did you draw out of that?
It's a pretty interesting predicament that we had at that time. So this is 2013. Smartphones had come out. SaaS as a category of applications was very new. The world of software was still very small. And hindsight 2020, we thought that, hey, we have reached a plateau. It was difficult finding more customers for the product that we have built. And there are a lot of other variables, investors and board and co-founders. And we decided, hey, now is the right time. You have a suitor, there's a match, and the large company will all be happy. Our spouses will be more than happier. And we sold the company. Of course, a lot went on between the 7 months that Oracle contacted us to the date of the exit.
Mm-hmm.
We thought whether we should do it or not, and it was divided opinion because the market was not expanding. Fast forward to now, the same application could have had billions of dollars in revenue because the category just exploded
Yeah.
in 2015, 2016. So I think the lesson for me is software is so new that it's 99% to be done. We have conquered only 1% of the world using software. So anything that has some amount of customer love, some product market adoption, keep on it. Don't give up easy. Try to go for the longer haul. That's my learning. Again, to your point, very hard to figure that out when you are in that moment, but very hard, easy for me to narrate back, think, oh, we should have done that better.
Well, I mean, I don't know how many BlackBerry investors were thinking, BlackBerry is going to corner the market. And I mean, BlackBerry is almost like what am I thinking of the VHS store, Blockbuster. So it's the Blockbuster of smartphones. I mean, it's the one that didn't adapt, with the times, or maybe chose the wrong path. So I mean, I actually wrote down, I said, during the notes, I said, does anybody remember BlackBerry now? It's like a new bumper sticker I'm going to start selling. Yeah, you remember BlackBerry? That's the lesson learned here. But it is interesting because, I mean, you've done some other things and been in some startups, been in successful companies. What has been, if you look back over your career, what was your favorite position that you ever had? What was that where you think this job, this title, this role right now is 10 out of 10. This is as good as it gets.
I'll give you one example, and I think that's my favorite. So I'm an engineer. I write code for a living, as recently as last year, and build new applications as I get ideas, just, fire up my workspace and just start working on it. Now, in 2003, I started working for a company called Veritas that later got acquired by Symantec, and now it's like larger Symantec universe, and then a lot of M&A and divestitures happen. But Symantec is the makers of the Norton antivirus.
Mm-hmm.
And I started working for a marketing team. And I could not imagine in my wildest dream that as a coder, I would ever be working in a marketing department. Now, the reason they hired me is because they were looking for someone with search engine experience, not search engine marketing, but somebody
Right.
with search engine experience. So I had written algorithms. I had worked for a startup that did some early work in collaborative filtering, search engine indexing. So I was like an engineer who understood how search engines work. And few things led to the other, and I found that, hey, it'll be good, change of pace, and go do this job where they would ask me to build some of the things on top of search engines, such as marketing content repository and database for workflows and sending mass emails out,
Mm-hmm.
customers and all that. And it was like, dream come true. And I'm an engineer. Imagine in a room full of 10 marketing people, only one person as an engineer and who understood how these things work behind the scenes.
Right.
It was an incredible job. Within a short span of like 4.5 years, I got promoted multiple times because I understood the nuances behind the scenes. Absolutely fabulous 4.5 years spent. Loved it every moment.
As you were kind of unpacking that story, I was thinking, how many times have we been in, think tanks and brainstorming sessions and whatever, and the people in the room are all relatively close in skill sets and in roles and stuff like that. And then you bring in this outlier that always has such a unique perspective. And it seems like they end up being the most valuable person on the team because they're the ones that can get out of groupthink, that can really see things from the dark side of the backside, and there are 360 views. So do you think that is true? As you were brought into kind of the marketing space, I mean, obviously you brought a different perspective, but from say a marketing company, marketing agency space, is there value, do you think, in bringing in a diversity of skills and roles, even seemingly unrelated?
I think definitely there is a lot of value. So if you're a marketing agency, if you get someone who understands how websites work behind the scenes, what happens when you deploy content on the internet, how do search engines index? So I think that foundational elemental knowledge definitely adds a lot of value. Of
Right.
course, the whole SEO space has been demystified 10 times over because people who understand search engine from a technology
Mm.
perspective, people who understand marketing perspective, they have now started fusing together.
Yeah.
And because of that, that problem is solved. But I think in general, I think if you remember, I'm trying to remember, there's a thing called the Medici effect, which is a period during Renaissance in 1600 AD, 400 years ago. There's this family called the Medici family,
Mm-hmm.
and what they did, they brought a bunch of professionals together, like 300 or 400 of them from different industries, put them in an environment that they would just go and enjoy time, which means they would brainstorm, come up with ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. I think that Medici effect is missing in many companies. We like to hire or bring people who are homogenous in their thoughts,
Yeah.
very relatable skill sets, and hence what we think is incremental and not groundbreaking.
Mm. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking when you were talking about, you stepping into that room, of the marketing team. And it really is, I mean, it's exponential growth versus just, like you said, incremental. So what was the end result of your, as they would think, interloping in their space? I mean, was there an immediate like value, you know, understood from their side that says, yeah, he understands the things that we don't? Or was this like, actually, you've got to earn your way to the table here?
I got lucky there. I had a boss who was very supportive. He knew that I had zero knowledge of what a marketing campaign is for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
And, I kid you not, I would sometimes think that what these guys are even talking about, this is so simple. Why are they wasting like 60 minutes in a meeting? Because they took it from a marketing direction.
Yeah.
I'll give you one example and you laugh at it. Somebody said, "Oh, we got to write a copy." Why? Why do you need to write a copy? What they meant was they have to think through the 5 or 7 keywords to put it in front of the customer. And I thought how difficult it could be, but it does require brain cells.
Yeah.
So I did not appreciate what they did initially. I had a very supporting boss. And then finally, I think my 4 years, I just learned everything I know now in marketing in those 4 years.
Yeah, and obviously has borne fruit, in your endeavors since that time, for sure. I mean, that time was certainly not wasted. So let's get back to Quolum a little bit. So what was the impetus for the company? What was kind of you said, I'm an engineer, I solve problems. I mean, that's why I exist. So what was the problem you were trying to solve when you started the company?
When I was working for Chargebee, which is now a SaaS subscription unicorn, I saw how my team was spending money on software and not having the tools to track expenses on a recurring basis, such as, hey, they would spend money on, let's say, a marketing tool, and then a product led growth analytics tool, and then a customer touchpoint tool. And I would not know who authorized it and why this money was being spent. The reason being was we were living in, or the org processes typically live in three silos of finance, it pays, users kind of use and consume, and then there's procurement or IT that deploys.
Mm-hmm.
None of these tools are connected. A card is not connected to an IT process, not
Yeah.
connected to a user process. And I thought, hey, why not solve this problem by being in the flow of money, by being in the flow of the tool's usage? That idea just lingered for 6, 7 months before I decided to quit Chargebee and start Quolum.
And I mean, it like we talked about so many times. I mean, the idea was almost like you're scratching your own itch. You were seeing the issue, whether it was directly or indirectly affecting you. Were certainly, I mean, it was a fairly close, problem you were trying to solve. But are there ideal clients out there? I mean, is it a certain size of a company, certain type? Are these technology companies that this is primarily affecting, or what do you see as far as like your inbound and you're saying these are the ones, the companies that are responding the quickest to this service offering?
We go after companies that are around 500 employees, mid-size, as you would call it. And these are the companies that are struggling to corral all their software expenses and see who's spending what. If they're not using, can they proactively go downsize and cancel? And these are the companies reaching out. In last 30 to 45 days, we've seen a new category of request. We're saying, hey, I need help on governance.
Mm.
An employee was let go, or we had some layoffs. I have these hundreds of tools that are unknown or in zombies because we don't know whether people are using, but it's getting paid for. So we're seeing a new
Yep.
class of governance related requests coming. Spend has been there as a foundational layer, but we're seeing governance requests coming in more and more.
And I mean, this is, you think of was GDRP in Europe and just other like this overwhelming, regulatory environment that they're having to operate in. But do you see that some of the SaaS companies are like, oh, please don't create Quolum because it's going to, it's like a gym membership that you bought 3 years ago and you don't know, it's just kind of recurring. They're going, you're helping them recognize the waste on, subscription and stop that. So have you had any pushback at all from companies that have a subscription model?
We have had our own issues. We have had a company that said, hey, but this is not going to fly with our sales team because you are reducing, the exposure of uh, of of revenue because we can't monetize it. But at the same time, they were also appreciative that
Mm-hmm.
a customer may get pissed off and completely cancel the account
Yeah.
versus we'll say, hey, downsize it by 30%. You still have a happy customer forever rather than an angry customer canceling everything. So it was difficult early on, but now I think it's become easier to convince. And then they see value rather than cancellation. So
Yeah.
not an easy conversation, but I think there's a middle path to it.
I mean, I could also see like just because you're reviewing it doesn't mean that it's you're going to cancel. I mean, it could be you need to integrate it better. You need to have an update. You need to have different services. I mean, there could be just it's like almost an internal audit, of subscription services. So what's been the learning curve? When you started, talking to companies about this, was it an immediate adoption? Yes, I get it. We understand fully, what you're trying to solve here. Or was there is that really an issue, or was it somewhere in between there?
I think I'm sure you're gonna laugh at it. So earlier, until 2022 March, when I would call down upon CFOs saying, "Hey, we have built this is interesting," and they would show their proverbial middle finger saying, "No, no, 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 we have too much cash right now, or we are flushed with revenue related issues. Spend kitchen cleanup is the last thing on our mind. So come back when we need you." And then something magical happens in 2022's March. There's all of a sudden a narrative of softness in the market, valuations being cut down, layoffs looming, and the same cohort starts taking our phone calls. And then that's when we realize that we have something that is going to be useful. what we set out to build was for a time which was neutral, not very aggressive in terms of deployment of cash, not overtly subdued,
Mm-hmm.
but yep, business as usual. But then COVID happened, and all of a sudden, aggressive sense of money and spending, people didn't care about anything that we had built. And now we are back to the normal times. So, oh yeah, I got to take care of the kitchen. I got to clean it up. I have to maintain hygiene. I have to have compliance and governance. So all of a sudden, we are back in fashion.
I love that analogy. We're back in fashion, but do you see? I mean, are you at the stage now that you're starting to get referrals, like CFO to CFO, say, because they talk, they kind of have their own fraternity, that of kind of that space and that level, that C-suite, financial background. Do you see? I mean, are you talking to one? He says, hey, actually, this would be good for this other company that I was just on the phone with over here. And is there any form of affiliate, referral, that you're working with these companies?
We've seen a little bit. We are not there yet as a scale. We have less than 100 customers. So a few referrals here and there keep coming, but not in that inflection point that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, critical mass, so you get like 10, 15 referrals every month. We definitely see that happening because CFOs are very well close-knit communities. They
Yeah.
talk to each other. They vet vendors through back channel
Mm-hmm.
references. So I see that happening. But I see that happening more in IT than finance because IT is not just well knit, but they also are well documented across their best practices. So if you look at analyst firms such as Gartner and Forrester, they talk a lot about the best practices and they
Mm-hmm.
bring it out. In case of CFOs, it's still very inside the room. IT, in contrast, inside the room, but they're moderators who push these messages out to the audience. So we see like, IT coming out a little bit more aggressively on the referrals than just the finance.
I I just had this crazy idea of, all entrepreneurs the gears are always spinning. I was thinking, you know, wouldn't it be cool if you had existing clients that every time you were talking to a potential client, that it would almost automatically trigger a referral from a previous client, like almost as a reference, like where you send it and you say, it's automated. It says, hey, we are actually talking to company B. I would love to have your honest feedback on, our working relationship, especially if we have a good one, that says, and it's really short and sweet, but I would think that there would be some like instant credibility on company B if company A says, yeah, we work with them. They're a trusted partner. They deliver on time. They've saved us, a lot of money type thing and we certainly plan to continue our relationship with them. And you're retaining kind of company A at the same time. You're
Yeah,
kind of giving them a chance to, but that's an early stage idea. I haven't worked out
I
yet.
think it's a
So,
great idea. No,
but
I really love it because it would happen automatically without intervention. And you don't have to aggressively go back channel because a thread has been initiated. I really love it
yeah,
because vetting is very difficult, and if referrals are not happening, guess how people buy? They buy based on brand perception, which
yeah,
actually hurts
or
the smaller
reviews. Yeah,
companies more. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just have a 10% service fee on great ideas. So, other than that, yeah, it's in the public domain. You can use it if you want to. Yeah. Oh man, that's funny. But tell me how, if this is our audience really is more geared toward marketing agencies, that are providing these great services to companies. And if you were thinking in those terms, I mean, I could see like almost a two channel, like, are you the size enough that this would benefit you, as an agency owner, like a larger agency, or your clients that you're working with, this seems like a great, referral item as well that says, hey, this is something that you may not have thought about, but if you can get this under wraps, that certainly would increase, your marketing budget. or funds available to, for outbound and just or to use in different areas. But what would you say if you were talking to agency owners about this space and the application of Quolum?
I think for us, the two things that matter is if you pay for an application, are you getting the most bang for the buck, right? And this is where marketing agencies do a pretty good job. So they understand their stack of software very phenomenally well, so that every dollar that is spent, let's just take SEO as an example. There are two tools to choose from, A versus B, and they would very elementally know which one is good for you or the other if you want to use it independently. Of course, they subscribe to multiple of these tools. So from our perspective, the value of Quolum is that, hey, if you're spending a dollar on any tool, if you're not driving value for your customers, we could help you switch it off.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not logging in, if you're not using features, if your spend is out of control, or many times the applications have dark patterns where they would force you to upsize or pay you more for a small feature or an overage, we control that. And that's the value that we aspire to bring for all our customers. And likewise for marketing agencies, knowing that they have a larger client base. And many times they're using their customers' accounts and they log in, sometimes the vice versa, where let's say they use a project management tool, they onboard a customer, and now let's say the customer churns. Is that seat still lingering unused and you're paying like hundreds of dollars for that? We can help detect and cancel and downsize.
I certainly, there's a direct effect, and I think there's an indirect effect, that as you described, kind of a pretty broad picture there of things for them to consider. But it is such an interesting, I guess, thought process to see how companies and ideas, can integrate with each other and can support each other and overlapping complementary, services, that they can provide. But I could ask you questions all day, Indus. I know that you got things, you got a company to lead here, but I'm going to shift right now to this is a favorite part of the podcast. It really is it's kind of the quick fire round, and these are going to be seemingly disparate questions, but there's a method to our madness behind this. We love to kind of just get the cross section of answers to these questions, but very, very quick questions, very quick answers. So, did you get along with your parents growing up?
Not with my dad, but yes, with my mom.
Did you have siblings?
Two, a brother and a sister.
And do you currently have a pet or pets?
None right now.
Kids?
Sorry?
Children?
Yep. Two boys, teenagers.
And do they have the entrepreneurial gene?
Trying to inject, but not tell them what to do.
There you go. I love that. It's influence, not authority. There you go. What time do you wake up in the morning?
7:15.
And go to bed?
11:30.
Ideal vacation spot. Money, not an object.
I'll go to Hawaii every year.
That's a great choice. Great choice. Are you a person of faith?
Yes, I am.
How does faith affect how you operate business?
Turn me into a believer of things that do not work for me.
And the last question, this one is you're king for a day in the marketing world. What is one thing that you would change about the current marketing climate?
Truth in advertising. Show the brand that what it is. Do not do fake stuff.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because so many answers are somewhat related to that space. Cut down the noise, cut down the hyperbole, truth, just over and over and over again. So yeah, if enough people keep talking about it, we'll get there someday, right? We will get there someday. Indus, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you just like to wrap us up with today, and maybe tell people where the best place to find you online and find out about Quolum?
Yep. My name is Indus again, Indus Khaitan. Find me on LinkedIn, find me on Twitter. I have a okay Twitter account. I just randomly tweet about food and whatever I like. Indus Khaitan. That's it.
And the website of your company.
Quolum, Quolum.com, or just search for it. You can find it by my name as well.
He's great. I reached out to him on LinkedIn. He is great to respond. And now we've had a great couple of interviews here at Indus. Thank you so much for just taking time and just sharing your thoughts and your expertise on the podcast. It has been great having you with us. Have a great week.
Thank you, Kevin. It was fantastic chat.
Thank you for tuning in to another great episode of the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where we provide the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. To learn more, go to umbrellaus.com.